All right, hey everyone. This is going to be the start of a new series here. We've got Thomas Nobbs, who, if you've listened along, if not, we'll link the episode below, who did a full podcast with us here. But Tom's getting ready for the marathon project in December up in Chandler, Arizona, where we're going to take a big swing at a PR. And we both thought it would be fun and hopefully informative for some of the athletes we coach and athletes out there who follow along with the sport to actually go through his build with him. So we're going to do a bit of a catch-up episode here to take us back from the start of the build to now, November 13th. And then we're going to try and do something weekly where we break down his workouts, hopefully in a little bit more detail, his long runs, kind of see where he's at, and follow him along as he chases some big goals. So thanks for listening, and thanks for jumping on, Tom.
Yeah, no worries. I feel like this has been maybe a long time coming, because there's quite a bit in Final Surge, and I mean, over email chains and Google Sheets. So I think we got a ton of data that we can reference from past years as well.
Yeah, and this is the cool thing. Like, this is our third marathon build together. So you debuted in Philly with 219 2 years ago, last year Toronto Waterfront 215, and now trying to take a big swing down. We'll see what the pacing in the groups looks like for marathon project, but yeah, try to bring it down there and have some fun. And so I wanted to start off just kind of like prefacing how I approach the marathon, but just to put it into the broad picture for everybody listening, because we're not going to go through like every single easy run. It's more so going to be the workouts and long runs. When we look at trying to achieve success in the marathon, I look at it as a hierarchy, right? So it's like total aerobic volume, and then marathon pace, and then tempo pace, and then interval pace. So I think you can get a lot of the same physiological benefits of marathon pace out of doing tempo and interval pace stuff. But I think there's also, especially for newer marathoners, a lot of value in doing a bunch of miles at marathon pace, practicing fueling at marathon pace, changing some of those like long runs up from easy to marathon pace and such too. And so you'll see a bit of a blend of all of that early on in this build, and just know that this is, like I noted before, Thomas and I are working together for 3 builds now, 3 really good half marathon builds too, where we've taken a lot of data to start building this. And I wouldn't say go and copy and paste this. This is more for informative and enjoyment purposes than giving you what to do for a marathon, because this is a very high level kind of tailored build for an athlete and a coach who have been together for quite some time. So that's the preamble. So we'll take it back and kind of catch us up. So the first week of this build roughly was the week you did Montreal half marathon. So we had just a little session. I'll share some of your training here soon, but I don't want to bump in the half marathon chat first. So we just had a little taper session midweek, didn't really let you up for too much air. And then Montreal half. So we went into that close by, and you end up having some competition actually that we didn't expect. So do you want to talk about how Montreal half went? And for reference, you still had a 100-mile week that week with the couple day taper. How'd that go?
Yeah, no, it was that was a really fun time. I think past builds, we've kind of just been pedal to the metal all the way into race day, and I think I guess we're sort of doing that just because like it's a later December race, but I think I really do enjoy that. And in the past, I've had a hard time reconciling that it's not an all-out race. It's like or we're doing some sort of partial taper, and I'm a very all-or-nothing personality, and so finding that in between of like, oh, we're not like fully racing this is like very, very tough. And yeah, looking at this one, I was like, oh, okay, like decent race, decent course. It actually ended up being hillier than I thought it would be. The day before I was looking at it, I was like, ooh, that's a really nice hill from 12.5 to 19K or whatever. But yeah, in previous years, it was one in 65:50 and 65 minutes. So I was like, okay, that's a gentle cruise. And yeah, and then, a guy goes out, pretty quick, like 2:55, 2:56 minute Ks from the start. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. He'll come back. And he kind of kept yo-yoing, but he kept pressing, and he definitely had like a lot to push, a lot of power. And it ended up being like he's from France. He's sponsored by Kip Run and Decathlon. His name's Johan Kowal. He has like a 102.46 PB. So I got to kind of trade Ks with him for quite a bit of it. And we were kicking like really hard 2:45, 2:50 minute Ks in the last few Ks. Yeah, it was a fun race. I think like left that one with like a little bittersweet taste in my mouth. But yeah, I felt remarkably great, the day before and, during the race too, where if the hills weren't there, I was like, oh, like, not PB territory, but I could have gone down there. And I think just being able to fit in a 100-mile week leading into that and feel that good off of like maybe only just like a 1 to 2-ish day taper, I was like, I was pretty excited with that fact, because I don't think I've ever felt that great running a race with that amount of volume. Yeah, that was really cool to see. Just coming off that summer block that we did too.
I think, your official time, I think was it like 104? I looked at that and going, okay, it was pushed. That's a bit of a hilly course. It was also windy that day. And the general rule at kind of your level and the sub-elite level behind you is take your half, double it, and add 5 minutes. And I was like, man, if we're doing that off of like no taper, you had some pretty big weeks, the kind of weeks before there going at 200K, give or take, 125 miles, I think the 3 or 4 preceding weeks, right? It was like, okay, we're in the ballpark of what we need to do here, right? And so, looking after that week, I liked this probably more than you did, but I held you out a week of workouts just because I knew you actually you were pushing a little bit on that half. So I held you out to the Sunday, and then we did a little bit of M-pace session. So we just went straight to easy runs, and I'll explain why I did that. It's early in the build. That was a little bit of a harder effort per se than we thought it might have been. And so I wanted to make sure we came out of that in a good place to get ready and know that, okay, we're already seeing good signs and good signal that we're in the right place. Let's not push and get greedy here in week 1, week 2 of the build. And oftentimes when you race a hard half like that, it takes 5-6 days to really get the junk out of your legs. So I know you don't like that as an athlete, you get back on it and stuff, but what was your thoughts as we kind of, we went into that Sunday and just did something, super straightforward, 90 minutes easy, 30 minutes 30 minutes easy. What, if you can recall, what were you thinking that week?
Yeah, I think that week in particular, I did feel pretty good, especially in the first few days afterwards. I think in the first few days afterwards, you're almost like getting this sort of a aerobic boost, and you're like, man, I'm on top of the world. I could go crush something. But it really does come like a few days later in the week. I think fueling right after the race was pretty optimal. I even they allowed bottles in that race too, which was quite interesting. So I even, I missed one bottle, but I had 2 bottles, like a minimal amount of carbs, maybe like 24 grams of carbs per bottle. And so, I was feeling pretty good, but we've done this before where we've kind of like in between blocks, just do an easy run week and then hit some sort of long run, or maybe it's like we're not hitting a long run hard, but I end up just getting after it. And I just find that it's almost like you build more fitness through that week of easy running than just like a week of stacking workouts. And I think it's hard for most athletes to sort of deal with that idea, like I'm doing less and less intensity, but my body is feeling better and able to do more. And then usually, that long run, instead of coming into it stale, like the long run workout that I think we did, I think I felt pretty great. I was pretty fired up, and you're just not coming into that stale, which is, I think super important to set the tone of the next. I'm going
to show some final surge here. So if we look back, this was the workout we did on the Tuesday. So this was coming out of the Sunday post half. So you're looking at 9 days. So we did 25 minutes at marathon to tempo effort, right? And then 5 minute jog, and 8 to 10 by a K, one at tempo, 1 minute easy jog. So that actually, let me pull this over, right? So you were 307s, right? For the 25 minutes, good, easy shuffle jog, right? People listen, treat your recovery super chill, right? And then 301, 7 minutes, 255, 10 minutes, 303, 730, 256, 11, 3 minutes, 836, 253, 10 minutes, 259, 254, right? Oh, 258, sorry, 253. And so I think why I wanted to show this was just that level of intensity, consistency that you had there in a long workout, right? That's, we're pushing 55 minutes worth of tempo work, marathon to tempo work in that. And so I think you've come a long way in being able to pace this. And so what did you think of that session coming out? I know you were a little bit hungry to do one coming into that. So what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, I know. I think, following the half, I just knew hey, we're truly in it now. I know we're counting down 9 or 10 weeks to the marathon. So I knew it was okay, I want to make each workout matter. I think I was pretty confident that I'd recover well coming off the weekend, that's been a lot better compared to previous years. I think I've definitely in previous builds suffered from overdoing the effort on the Sunday long run, especially during the summer and the heat, and then not having the legs coming into the Tuesday workout. I think you had told me this was going to be a bigger one. And I really do find that as these sessions get longer, it does take the legs a little bit of time to warm up, but being conservative in that first 25 minute marathon tempo effort. And it's almost I almost sometimes wonder if you're psychologically like changing it, calling it meritempo so that I run the proper effort, or I second guess these things. But yeah, I think that was really good effort, and then just being able to feel as good as I was in the tempo. And I was almost like, oh, maybe I should be like jogging some of these, in between rest periods a little bit more, because like, I was able to cut down to like 2:53-ish pace for the last one, and it's like obviously a little quicker than tempo, but yeah, so like it's kind of like builds confidence, and then you're kind of just like, maybe there's little things I can do afterwards that I can optimize for. So it's a good feeling walking out of something like that.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the reasons I did caution you that week is because that was a bit of a stacked week, right? So if we talk about what else you did that week, so that workout that we just showed was on the Tuesday. On the Friday, we came back and did 2 miles at marathon, 3 minutes easy jog, 6 by a mile at tempo on 1 minute easy jog, 3 minutes recovery, and then 3 by 200, just like glorified strides, right, at 5K on 30-second recovery. And so we knew that was going to be a little bit of a stacked kind of 5-6 days, because you executed. Like, this is a key thing I find for people in the marathon builds. You got to execute the workouts appropriately. Otherwise, the next one's going to suffer a little bit, right? So if you look at what you were doing in here for that workout, by the time you got in, 10 minutes at 3:08, doing your miles here, right? 4:51, 4:50, 4:50, 4:51, 4:45, 4:50, right? And then back into these 30 seconds. But it's that intensity discipline that allowed you that week to have like 2 really good sessions in short succession. And part of when we planned that like off week coming out of the half was to fully recover, get your legs ready to come into this hard week as well. And so what did you think of that workout?
Yeah, I think again, I was very happy with recovery off of the big session on Tuesday. I think we didn't do a double on Tuesday, and I think that was like more on the cautious side of things. But yeah, I was feeling, I think because we didn't even do a double, I was like, man, I'm on top of the world. I can do anything. This one, the miles were like a tiny bit tough, but I definitely felt like I had the wheels for that. I think realistically, if I was being a little bit smarter, I could have backed off like a few percent effort. I definitely distinctly remember that, but I think it was all there. Sometimes that, mentally just to process it, I look at like what the PM workout it was, and I was like, oh, the PM workout's going to be like a breeze. So I knew I could like push a little bit more in the morning one, but I think maybe from a threshold standpoint or double threshold standpoint, I could probably have eased off the effort. Still we're getting like, really good fitness built out of that day. So something that I'm still trying to keep in the back of my mind as we're going into this current week and future weeks too.
Absolutely. And then just to top that week off,
45. It was more like steady state pace steady state, and I was definitely on the hot end, just under the hot end of steady state. So I think that was actually, I think I'm very fit, and so I could handle it, but I don't think that was like probably my most disciplined run out of all of them.
Yeah, so why do you think that is? Like, good feedback for me and good for everybody listening. Like, why do you think that one was a struggle per se to execute?
I think sometimes I go out at a pace and I'm like, oh, well, this is what, mile 1 is like. So the rest of the miles just have to be like that. I guess sometimes I picture like, oh, like if I'm trying to be like it's definitely a flaw to be like, oh, I'm trying to be a 212 guy would be like doing this for steady state pace. And last year, my steady state pace we said was 3:30 to 3:37 or something like that.
Yep.
So from that standpoint, I'm like, oh, well, it must be faster than last year. And then I don't know. I guess just on the day I was a little fired up, and so. But yeah, I think we were noting on that, like just to back off a little bit in the future. Yeah.
Fair enough, and good to bring that up, and it's a good lesson. Like, you need to train, for who you are that day, not who you think you are or who you want to be, right? It's like where you're at. And I know that's something like in the last 2 years in particular as we've moved to the marathon, and we actually talked about this when I said you should move up to the marathon. I was like, I think you'll get a lot more peace with your training and won't have to push as much. And so you're right. And you're so reflective, like when we talk about it, like to know that you did that. So it's interesting to watch as you kind of develop here. If we look ahead now, we're up to October 7th. And so that was a traditional double T day that we threw in there coming off. So just a super simple 4x3K marathon pace on 1 minute in the AM, and then 10x3. This is kind of your bread and butter when we do double T now. Like, you probably know exactly where you're doing it on the canal, the routes and everything for that, I imagine, at this point. Is that true?
Yeah, this one was I was really excited with how I felt in the 4x3K. I think I was bang on. Even it was like windy, and I was like, I was checking heart rate, and I was like, wow, like these splits are like kind of even close to what the goal marathon pace would be like, and I was like kind of impressed by that, and I was trying to hold back and really respect like double T effort. The problem was, suddenly we entered fall, things had gotten dark, and actually I was going back to the same place for the 10x3 minute, and it was like a thunderstorm, it was raining, so I was actually in the dark and sprinting through puddles, and so my paces was probably a little bit erratic on that 10x3 minutes, and unfortunately, like, we've had a ton of construction on the canal, and I think this is where like random life factors come into play, but I don't get to go to the same place. And I think I really value when I can do double threshold and go to the same location, the same 1K stretch, and practice just like effort, running even efforts and all that stuff. So yeah, like little things that I'm like, oh, that wasn't really perfect, but I made the most on the day, and I think it averaged out to be like proper effort for the day. Probably the evening pace I might have slightly overextended myself, but yeah, I like little things to work on right there where the fitness is clearly there, but the execution could still be could definitely have been better in that PM session.
Yeah, and so how are you navigating that? Because you're really good reflectively, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot here, but what have you learned through this build and even previous builds too, maybe about maybe why you got to keep that in check, and how are you learning to, as somebody who likes to push up against the edge all the time? Like it's funny, like when Tom emails race directors to try to get into races, he's like, I'll lead your race for you, I don't care. And you did that in Toronto, like you were legit leading Toronto Waterfront Marathon. You had to tell the guys, like, it's too bad the gals didn't have you, because you had to tell the guys to keep going straight, right? But how are you kind of learning and adapting to do that now? Check those sessions.
Yeah, I think I know what's like within myself, like what I can recover from. I think like looking ahead, knowing that we just need a certain amount of effort put into each session, and like you and I always say, like we just need a B or B plus workout really, and yeah, really coming to terms that like tempo doesn't have to get like faster every single session. I think for years I was like, it had to be a few seconds per K faster every single workout. It's like that's like physically not possible throughout a season. And so just trying to understand like that, yeah, tempo effort will translate better, and even underdoing it is probably within a better zone for some of these sessions. So usually I found that I can tell when I'm getting a little too amped up or I'm pushing the pace way too hard. And I will do that. Like I think it comes up one every 6 sessions, one every 7 sessions.
Yeah, you're pretty good about it.
I think more so it's not that it comes up, but I'm better able to recognize, hey, that just happened. Like let's dial it in for the next couple weeks or so. I think just better recognizing when I have these, when I'm a bit more of a loose cannon on a workout, and just like able to self-correct going.
Yeah, fair enough. And then to cap that week, we went back and actually did a second double T day, another one of your bread and butter ones where we did 20, I'm just going to pull it up here again, 20 minutes warm up, and then 20 minutes marathon pace in the morning. And then in the PM, we did 6x at 10K. So just like cranking the intensity a little bit. And on my end, why we did this is I knew what was coming up there after that week. I mean, you did too, but like for you early on in the build, you've really responded well. Both in marathon builds and out of marathon builds, of that like true Norwegian 2 double threshold days in a week. Like you've talked about how much you love that. And so I wanted to put this in as a little bit of a, little bit upper tempo getting into the 10K pace, but also knowing that you had Toronto coming up and we wanted to take a go at it just to give you a big hit of threshold that week, knowing that we were going to come down just a little bit for that one. So what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I guess that morning session I didn't feel exceptional, but again, like that kind of that self-correction, I was like, okay, you had your binge day of like being a little bit dumb on Tuesday evening, so I just tried to be a bit more dialed in on the effort. And it was over like a sort of like a hillier route. We have these nice routes near the Ottawa farm, and there's these sort of fun loops. And normally I'd stick to pretty flat terrain on the canal, but I was just doing a bit of hills there. And then in the afternoon, I do work 9 to 5, and so I did hit the gym, and that was like the 6 by mile was on the treadmill, and I know I can get a lot out of myself, or even more out of myself, from the treadmill plus the heat training effect. And coincidentally, I think actually, blessing in disguise, I don't know, that heat training effect coming into Toronto was really nice, because I don't know, I wasn't as affected, but everyone was dropping like flies on that day. So I think it was there was some luck on our side there.
Blessing in disguise is the absolute best way to think about it. So if we go into the next week of the builds here, right? So just a couple of weeks back, a month ago now, I suppose, you did the Toronto Waterfront half, so you won that race, 103, so second fastest time, 103.28 officially. And so that week we actually did taper. Well, when we say taper, it's relative, but at this stage in the game. But we did want you to have a pretty good go at that, because historically, right, that has good weather, good competition. We knew with some of the Africans that were coming in that like the idea of going through in 62 high, 63 could be possible, right? So there was a good chance for you to get a half marathon that could have been a confidence booster and maybe a PR. Unfortunately, the winds came in, right? And nobody really ran exceptionally well there, even at the front end. But during that week, just a little taper session, like still wanted to keep the volume and get you something, right? Keep the legs moving, because remember, like the big goal is the marathon. I know you know this now, Tom, for everybody else, right? So it's like we still got to get something in here. So we just did 20 minutes at marathon, 5 minutes easy, 17:30 at tempo. I remember you text me, you're like, are you sure? Like that's a lot, right? And I was like, yeah it is, but we're doing the marathons, here we go. And then we haven't talked much about easy days, but you guys can see them if you pause while we're discussing these. But we did cut down a little bit, so going from 75-45 singles to 50-50, or 75-45 doubles rather, sorry, to 50-50 easy, and then a single, right? So just like a little bit of room to breathe, just get a little bit of junk out of the legs kind of thing, and then coming into Toronto. And so do you want to tell us about Toronto, because there was lots of fun there?
Yeah, and I don't know, like few weeks separation from Montreal to Toronto. I guess like Toronto was able to push a lot harder at harder paces for a lot longer. But I think like could have been the heat on the day, like that could have been a big factor. But I definitely think like Montreal, I was like, wow, I feel like I was surprised at how great I felt, and that was almost like it was like a subtle dip. And it's almost like, oh, maybe the engine just like really likes, where it's kind of at. Like that's where it was closer to homeostasis in that like mini 2-day taper versus like a more of a normal taper. And the body was like, I don't know about this. So I actually I didn't feel great, but you don't have to feel great to run fast. But yeah, that race, like I just remember how warm it was when we were walking over. And to the start line. Race starts at 8 a.m., which is like later than most races, but it was like 19 degrees. I remember that pretty distinctly when it started. Finished at like 21, 22. I don't know what the real feel was. And within the first 5K, like normally the first 5K and the first 10K is like very fast, which it was fast, and I think actually I got a CR at some point within the first 10K of a 5K split. And actually, I don't know if that 5K split was like 14, not the first 5K, but I think like the 5K with the downhill or something was like, maybe like 14:37, but that was what Strava said, so I wouldn't take that. I do remember that first 5K, I was like, okay, we're going to be fast, but the wind was just like really coming in our faces, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then after the turnaround and reaching 12K and just like really feeling that in our faces, I was like, I don't know about this. But yeah, that was a good time. It was just I don't know, just trying to run within myself, and I was like, I'm not feeling great. Took a gel at about 35 minutes in, a little caffeine gel. I really like the goo ones. I know no one likes goo, but I just like the taste, and it's got the right amount of caffeine that I like. And perceptually, that just changes a whole lot for me. I made a choice to take water at every water station too, and I think throughout that really helped. I'm pretty good about those grabs, and I think that just was just like another thing that sort of helped have everything line up on the day. And yeah, despite the wins, I think like the pace was pretty consistent. I think more so just seeing a few of those factors and within the build. I think it was just like a pretty exciting day, and I mean I had a ton of fun. Naturally, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe maybe I wish I could PB, but I really don't think it was the day for that. It was
not a PR day. No. And I think as you got a little bit further into the build too, it was like, it had to be a good weather day for you to PR. Like, we know you're fit, but it's like at that level in the margin of what you're trying to do, we need the weather to kind of to be on our side. So
yeah.
Didn't have it that day. So the next week, October 20th to 26th, was kind of similar to after Montreal, but given that we were a little bit closer in the build, you had done a bit more intensity. We came back on the Thursday, the 23rd, just with a session here. And just to open the legs up a little bit, nothing too crazy, right? So we started switching just with some of the daylight stuff for us here in the Northeast. Started like, you could do morning sessions or PM, switch it as worked best. But
yeah,
5 by a mile at tempo in 1 minute. And then again, this 4 by 60 seconds at 5K. And so, one of the reasons that I was doing some of these smaller ones early on is we are very early in the build. So we are more focused on, as we said off the top, the aerobic volume, the marathon pace, the tempo. But I do think you probably shouldn't go much more than 14, 20 days without hitting any stimulus. So just trying to keep some of this like faster stuff in, knowing that we're going to be coming to it within the coming weeks. So he's not fully out of touch of it. So I think I recall you feeling pretty fine. Like, you came out of Toronto in a really good place and hit that session.
Yeah, I felt like there was a little bit of residual fatigue to work through on that one, but it felt like definitely the right thing to prescribe and the right thing to do. It was a little windy that day, but yeah, no, it felt like as I worked through that workout, as I got to the 5K reps, like things started to feel better and better. And I think almost like, we kind of picked those two races sort of, because it was fun, sort of because it was earlier in the build. But I think through those two, it almost like calloused the legs. Like after Toronto, maybe it was the wind and stuff, I couldn't get as much out of myself. But yeah, I felt great on like the cool down, and I did like a 50 minute cool down post Toronto. And then we're doubling back to Thursday versus like a Sunday session after Montreal. And I think that's just like the durability factor that's sort of being built up over the big summer block, and then the higher density of intensity in some of these recent weeks as well. So kind of like I'm seeing some like elements of those factors in fitness building up, which I think is exciting. But and then also fueling. I think fueling,
huge difference.
Yeah, like taking a gel pre-race, close to pre-race for Toronto. During the half in Toronto, I think those sort of factors also help with making sure that you can complete this and you're not overdoing it on a session like this on a Thursday. Absolutely,
because we had to come back, right? We came back on the 28th here, right, and did a nice little 25-minute tempo, 5-minute easy, 10 by K. So that was that big session again, right? We came back to it, and you actually did this one decently well. I know you noted just kind of, when you did it this time, weather was a little bit worse because we're getting like, it's so windy up here in the fall. It's hard. You really got to go by effort, but just being in check with it. I think you had a long work week already that week at that point. So just going through that. And so what did you think, like hitting that session again, like 4 or 5 weeks post doing it the first time?
I think work may have been killing me that week, but this session I felt incredible. I think again, doubling back to do this session, when compared to doing the same session a few weeks before, the tempo in the first 25 minutes was naturally like 3-4 seconds per K quicker for the tempo section. I think it's, where is it? It's somewhere there. No, I think that's
your warm up. Yeah, so it's right here.
Yeah. So it was more like when I think the previous one was like 307, 308s. Yeah. And then wind and stuff is like pretty common for us, but I was very stoked with how this workout panned out. I think it was better execution and better splits on average than the one previous weeks.
Absolutely, and it was a high density session, and I knew. I mean, you see this because I do it every week, so you know what's going on for the week. But this was where we wanted to throw in something just to give you a little bit denser weekend. We'll talk about this session in a sec, but just a little bit of a longer single. And the idea behind this is just trying to get a little bit more durability for the last like couple miles. Like you've never really fallen apart per se, but just to have that little bit more trust in the legs towards the end, that you've kind of come back off tired legs. I mean, you're always tired. You're running, 125 miles a week, 15 and a half hours a week. That was the first week we did this. And then we came back with kind of one of the staple sessions we throw in there throughout the year together. Like just if we want a good kind of in and out session where we do 2.5 hours alternating 30 minutes easy, 30 minutes marathon pace. I added a note because this was the first weekend we did double long runs. So it was like, this is not a typo because I make typos sometimes, usually with spelling errors. But and so, yeah, you are really good. Like the one thing I'll note all the time, like you never have to worry about you with your easy paces. And I think it's something everybody could learn. And I use you as an example all the time. It's like, hey man, if this guy's trying to run, 210, 212, and he can run 7-minute miles on his easy days to 8-minute miles on his easy day, we could probably slow the heck down, right? So what did you think of this one? I know you like this workout because we go to it quite often.
Yeah, and I mean, I've studied like every single like pro athlete that's probably out there, and I think like very definitively, certain guys like Craig Mottram would always like say that I'm never doing my easy days faster than like 7-minute miles. And I've always kind of made that as like a mental note. Like I would so much rather just run a proper easy pace, where on the hotter end, I think I've noticed my heart rate drifts down and naturally sits at 120 to 130 on the average easy day now. If I'm, just adding a bit more momentum to my easy pace, maybe my heart rate is 130 to 145. So I kind of aim for that. And I think I've just tended to notice that an appropriate easy pace is like 4-minute Ks to 4 30-minute Ks or 4-minute Ks to 420s. I would rather be in that zone than sub 4-minute Ks, which is like kind of just a general junk zone for the most part, than like pushing that and then not getting the most out of myself for the marathon specific stuff. Like I would hate that. Like mentally, personally, I would hate that. I really don't know why people do that, because you're not getting the most quality out of the time that you're spending at marathon pace. And then you're getting some weird in-between fitness and just over fatiguing your legs. So, that workout in particular, I was very stoked with, just hitting basically at marathon goal pace. Yeah.
And I think too, like that's one of the things, like, if you've listened to this whole way, and I appreciate it if you have, but like, you haven't had a bad workout and you've had 2 races and everything we've talked about. And that truly is one of the reasons why you tend to not have bad workouts. Like, I don't remember the last time you like blew up a workout. I really don't. Like, it's been quite some time, right? Whereas before, when you were pushing up against the edge all the time, you'd have 2 or 3 good ones, 1 bad ones, and it's like, gosh, shit, the world's over. And it's like, okay, we'll get you back. And so now, from like a confidence perspective for you, like, we're talking about how are we narrowing in like 1%, 2%, right? Versus like, oh my God, I had a horrible workout. Am I going to be able to run this marathon? And I think that's exactly why what you're saying is like, you're nailing the efforts. You're not leaving, things on the table, recovery on the table by, cranking the easy days just to show that you have a good pace. I mean, I talk about this all the time, and I know you do too. It's like, who cares how fast you're on your easy days? I care how fast you're on race day. Right?
Yeah,
it's like, if it's going to stop you from being fast on race day, then like, what are we doing, right? Okay, last week that we have so far. So we'll share again here, one sec. And so this was what you just finished up last week. Our next video will pick up, this whole week. But so you look at it, back into the easy volume, coming out of that double weekend session, just checking in the legs, making sure we're good. Always high volume here for Tom, as he's right in the meat of the build right now. But coming back, 2 by 10 minutes at tempo and 2 minutes easy jog. And then we're starting to load up some of that 5K pace work as we get closer to the marathon. Remember, we're still, I don't know how many weeks out right now, but, December 21st to now, we got like 6 weeks, give or take, 8 by 800 at 5K pace. For some reason, I'm interested to see what you say, but like, when I give this workout, even just straight up 8 by 800 without the tempo and stuff, that is like people's most hated workout all time. Is 8 by 800. Well, I don't know why. I mean, I hated it too, but I don't know why. So I hate a lot of workouts, but
yeah, I don't know. Like I distinctly remember that a few different times, different builds, like 10K, within a 10K build ish, and previous marathon builds. I've always remembered that to be like a really tough one. Maybe it's just because of where we place it.
It could be
coming off of like a true I think it's like it's almost like polarized and contrasted against like the Sunday grindy
Long.
marathon session. So that could be it. Um, yeah, bit of a windy day. I think I more so remember just distinctly just being a little mentally tired. Like I'd taken like a small, tiny like 0.325 amount of melatonin, and I was like, my like OCD brain is like, oh, that was too much. Like now I'm feeling sleepy in the morning. So it took me some time to wake up there, and I was more so like thinking of that. But yeah, I think I was happy to get somewhat respectable paces for this workout, and probably I'd give myself like a B plus on that workout. But I was like, this is still a good sign, and I think the next one will be good because of it.
Yeah, it's just, I think you're right. The placement of it, coming off being tired. Also, we had like time change that week, so things were a little off too, right? So, but if we go back to finish off the week, we continued that double long run, 2:15, and then this one. I mean, I like it quite a bit. Throwing these longer M pace sessions in, I find not a lot of people do these, but I think it's a good confidence booster. It's a good practice for fueling. It's a good callousing the legs, right? Callous the mind of what it's going to be like out there. Now, obviously for you, 70 minutes at marathon pace. Sorry, go back here.
Yes,
70 minutes.
This was outdoor 60 and then indoor 70.
Yeah, because of snow and rain. But like, I don't know about you. You can tell me and tell us what your feedback is. But I like doing this in the build multiple times. I know you've done it a couple times now, where we hit 50, 60, 70 minutes at marathon pace just to check in, right? Like, how's that pace feeling? Do we think we can continue that on for you another hour? Does that feel like the right pace? What's fueling like at that pace? What's the effort like, psychologically? What does it feel like to be in that grind for a little bit? And so kind of walk us through that a little bit for you on this one.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think, so I've been using a sauna tent sort of experimentally. So I even found that that sauna tent didn't even really prep me much for jumping on the treadmill. I think that for any athlete that I coach too, or for myself, like I have to remind myself so many times that the first time you jump on that treadmill, it's like it's such a shock to the system. And I think I was able to hold pretty solid pace. I probably started out a little too quick, kind of being like 309-minute Ks, and using some incline. I like to use like 0.51 incline. I did reduce the incline to like 0.5 towards the end. More so mentally, I was really happy with the adaptation we got from that one, because I think water consumption was like, there was no amount of water I could have consumed that would have saved me towards the end of 70 minutes hard on a treadmill for the first time back on the treadmill. I was feeling a bit like quite lightheaded by the end of that. But between getting through that and I'm like, okay, I'd give myself easily like 2-3 seconds per K. Easy.
Yeah, easy.
For something like that. That plus the weekend before, I'm like, we're already in a pretty great place. Yeah. So definitely. And I know, like, we've done big blocks on the treadmill too, and I feel like I can definitely get the most out of myself or the best out of myself. So it's more of a confidence booster than this is kind of like second rate to going outside and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's a good place to leave it, because we're caught up on your training now. But thanks for sharing. Thanks for being open with us. I know some pros will do it, some won't, and I think it'll be fun. Hopefully for those of you listening, if you made it 43 and a half minutes of Tom and I talking about his training, tell us what you like, tell us what you want more of, so we can do it, because we're going to try and do this weekly and kind of break down the workouts. And hopefully if we do it weekly, we can do a little bit more detail in each session rather than catch up. But this is the road to Marathon Project. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome. Thank you.